Good morning,
Good morning.
Tom.
Yes.
All right, you want to start the recording now?
It looks like it started automatically when I logged in.
Okay. Then I guess we better watch what we say, right?
All right.
Okay, I took a couple of lines off of the introduction that I did for her. Because
Okay.
one was more like because I got it from online, and some of it was, she talked about students, like her students and what she teaches her students, so that wasn't really appropriate. And then because she is San Diego County, she mentions something that referred to some of the local cities, and I took that out and put Southern California.
Gotcha. Okay.
So you could read that if you want, or I'll read it if I want. If you don't.
Yeah. Feel free.
Right. Okay. Okay. Did you ever hear from her?
I did. Yeah. She sent over her presentation, so I have it just in case sharing her screen doesn't work or anything like
Perfect.
that. So
Perfect. Yeah. Excellent. Do you know how many people we have registered?
I do not. Trying to see if I have a quick photo of myself that I can change out for Lisa's photo so it doesn't weird anybody out.
When you start talking with Lisa's photo.
All right.
Yeah, I always keep one there. I mean, it's so much more convenient to be able to run to the bathroom, to take a sip of coffee, to take a bite of your donut.
All right.
Then you probably will make me a co-host as well.
Let me see.
Because what I've noticed is during the process, people come in for a good, 5 minutes. So even once we start, but we're reading our little introduction here, one of us will be admitting people while the other person talks, and we continue admitting people.
Gotcha.
It just works easier that way.
Sounds good.
Find a picture?
Yeah, I did. Let's see. There we go.
It's nice. You look very happy.
It was a wedding photo.
Okay. Have you ever done a presentation with Google Slides?
I have not.
Okay, well, our next speaker, who knew? She was a school teacher, I guess that's why.
Okay.
They really use Google Slides or Google for everything, right? So she says it does incorporate. I don't think you can pull it into a PowerPoint, but it does screen share. What am I trying to say? It does screen share through Zoom. So what I might do, will you be doing the next?
That I don't know. I don't know if Lisa will be back by then or not. I haven't heard. So
Okay.
There's a possibility.
Okay, well, you know what? Even if she's not, let me send you an email. And if you have the opportunity, maybe we can set up a small, quick Zoom meeting to see if we can get her slides working. Then even if you're not there, I just don't want to do that the day of.
Yeah, definitely.
So, and then therefore, if we get it all done and working, it doesn't, that's fine. Whether
Sure.
you're on for that next March presentation or not, it won't matter, but we know that it works.
Okay. Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah, and I don't know what it is with Google and teachers, though. It's amazing. Everything we do, okay, well, it's on collaborative tools in Google. Okay. Because we do a lot with school gardens,
Right.
a lot of times we have, past teachers that are involved in it. And that seems to be their favorite means of communication. So did you hear they're closing Walker Canyon?
No, I didn't.
That's actually a good thing, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Just because people have no respect.
Yeah, that's a big problem.
You don't really need to lay down in a field of poppies to take a selfie. Yeah, come on.
Yeah. What was it like? Just the year of COVID or the year after, when we had the huge poppies everywhere, and they were, they were by my house, and people were flooding the streets and trampling over everything, and it was terrible.
Yeah, and that's what's happening there. The people can't access their homes. They can't kids can't be picked up from school. You can't do grocery shopping. And it's not like it's a 2-day event,
Right.
So actually yesterday I went to Trio Life Nursery over in San Juan Capistrano. And great view from up there on the road over the Ortega.
Yeah.
It was really pretty. The only thing is, because of the Santa Anas, it was very dusty. But, yeah, but that's one alternative. They can go up there and take a look. No, but it makes sense because, until people learn how to deal with these areas and respect nature a little bit more, I'm for, just close them down.
Yeah.
Or figure a way. And the thing is, how can they even figure a way? There's no roads there.
Right.
There's nothing really to figure
out
how to approach, because you're either on the freeway or off the freeway. And because there's the interpretive center over there, the Sycamore Interpretive Center, which is a part of our CRCD.
Okay.
And Michelle, who handles that location, was saying, in 2019, just before the COVID, that it was just crazy. People were trying to park in that parking lot, which is very small. And once again, just you couldn't get in, you couldn't get out. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this talk. It's perfect for Riverside County, the older areas. Absolutely perfect. Because most of them have the connections in a garage.
Yeah.
So that makes it much easier to access.
Looks like the presenter is here, so I'm going to let her in. Is that okay?
Yeah, definitely.
Someone else is here too, but I'm not sure who that is. So
yeah, we're not her.
Okay.
Not her. Oh yeah, there's Brooke. Hi, Brooke.
Hello.
Good morning.
Oh,
You good?
can hear you guys.
Can you hear us? Okay. Say something because you're a little garbled.
Is this working any better? I have a headset in.
That's better.
Okay, cool.
So, how are you?
Doing okay. We've had some like crazy email stuff going on, so I just kind of got all of that sorted, so that feels good. But yeah, it's a beautiful day here. It's a Mountain Valley Center, so it's a little windy but clear.
Hey, on your introduction, I took it basically from online, from what you have online.
Sure.
I just took off like the last line where it talks about students. So you
I don't remember.
Okay, you don't even know what it is. Then we're good. It basically alludes to the fact that you also teach because you to your students.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with however you want to present that.
Okay. And then I changed it from, because you do mention specifically San Diego County. I said Southern California.
Cool, perfect.
Working area. Okay.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay, good.
We've done a lot of work out there in Riverside, actually. I had a good friend who lived out there for a long time, was doing permaculture design. And so we would collaborate on a lot of things.
I saw that you did, you're certified in permaculture too.
Yeah.
Great.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so, am I going to be sharing my screen or are we going to, okay.
I do have it all set up, so you'll be fine sharing your own screen.
Okay, cool. But you have the presentation just in case something happens.
I do.
In fact, if you want to go ahead and put up your first slide now, just so you know that it works for us.
Yeah.
Hey, I have a question for you. There is a young family that has moved to the desert or out in the desert area. I'm not sure quite what area, but I know they have installed a couple of the water, and it's called Shiny Little House. And they're YouTube videos. And so they've taken the desert. I was wondering if you were involved with that. Because I mean, I see your advertisement on, it's pretty prominent, like on Facebook and in other locations. Either one of the two companies, you see information about it. And what they did, they started out with a trailer, and they were living there. They did swales and had the land surveyed for, to adjust to the rain and to do their crops. I mean, it's an amazing project. But when I saw them putting in the tower, I thought of your company.
Are they, this is weird. Are they in like Southern California desert or a different desert?
Yeah, it could be San Diego County desert or it could be Riverside County desert.
Yeah, I haven't heard of them, but that's really cool.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
So I'm assuming you guys see my screen.
We see your screen, but we still see your side screen. So when it comes time, you would want to do full screen.
Okay, let me try again. So I did play.
Play from the beginning, I think. Well, right now you've got full screen.
Yeah. I just got out of full screen. So I'm going to stop sharing for a minute. I remember there's something I wanted to add.
Okay.
That's really cool. So man, just out in a trailer. Started
with the trailer. Now they're building a little, they had an Airstream. Now they're building a little, little hut by it. They're farming. They're farming out there. They're saving water. They've got, it's an amazing project.
That is really cool.
YouTube. It's called Shiny Little House.
Yeah, I haven't heard of that.
Yeah. But what
I'm so glad that people are, just like sharing their stories to like help people be inspired. I think it's really helpful to see what's possible.
I think we're better off in California than so many other places.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we're learning to replenish those water tables.
Mm-hmm.
And that is really where those aquifers are what we're going to be dependent upon.
So you're in Riverside. Is this being hosted by the water company?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So what is the format that is anybody going to like present or discuss anything before me?
Tom, you have anything to say? You're muted, Tom.
Just what you have written out for the introduction.
Okay, Tom, you should see your headphones. You've got your backyard fence behind it.
I know, right? I hate using a virtual background.
Virtual background. Did you mean as far as the rules and the laws?
Yeah, or even just like
an introduction?
Yeah, or no, not an introduction. Just if the water company was going to share anything particular, or I just don't want to like say anything that's going to be in contradiction to the water department. I looked a little bit about Riverside's water, and it's actually really interesting because you guys are not reliant on imported water, from my understanding.
No, we're importing water from the basin up in Northern California. And the Colorado River.
Oh, you are? Okay, that's really interesting because so you're just like everybody else in Southern California then.
Yeah, we get our water from Metropolitan Water District, and that's where they get it.
Because I was reading that you guys have your own, like the Santa Ana watershed, the Santa Ana River basically, and all the groundwater is what Riverside relies on. So, I mean, do you know like a percentage of what water is imported versus local?
I personally don't. I'm filling in for someone doing this, and I work in the administration department, so I handle all the, just little things here in the building itself. So I'm not sure.
Well, we do have well water still in Riverside County, a lot of well water throughout the county. I don't know, and that obviously comes from the aquifers, correct?
I believe so.
Yeah. But outside of that, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I mean, so that would be one point that, I mean, we do have water coming from that. Everybody else, like I have Rancho, but Rancho is a part of Western, which is, like they said, everything comes from Metropolitan Water District. So that classic, gosh, wish I had a presentation that Celeste just did.
I know Celeste.
Yeah.
I love
and she did a presentation on our water situation.
Oh man, I would have loved to see that.
You can. I think it's still online at the on WMWD website. They have past presentations.
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
Yeah. She knows her stuff. She's really got it.
She's so good. I just love her.
Bottom line, I think everybody needs, we're still in the drought. Everybody knows that. Well, we know that. The public has decided that we're probably out of it now.
So is Western water delivered to all of Riverside exclusively, or is Western Municipal Water District like a private water company like Cal American that delivers to that buys and then sells to different places throughout the state?
We are, do you know, Tom?
We only service sections of Riverside. There are other sections of Riverside serviced by other departments, and we also have a small section in Murrieta, but that's it.
Yeah, because we have Eastern, Western. What else do we have?
Riverside Public Utilities does water as well.
So and Rancho, obviously, that's South County more.
Elsinore Valley Water District.
That's yes, right. That's right. Elsinore is separate from Eastern, isn't it?
Mhm.
Mhm. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a few of us in a not super large area.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that just helps me with context for like why, like why any of this matters. Cool.
Let me see.
Mm.
Okay. Riverside can't. Oh, and then what, because Riverside goes all the way to the desert, so we have Coachella Valley, which also, they also have an excellent water table source out in that area at the conifers. And Coachella Valley, I think, is one of the biggest ones.
Mm. That's part of Western Municipal.
I'm not sure. How far do you go east? Do you know? Beaumont?
No, not even. We stop like at the 215. So where if you cross over the 215 into Marina Valley, it's not us anymore. It's Eastern already.
Do you guys, I'm looking on your okay, so Save Water. Just wondering like what you guys are, if you are offering any
Yes.
rebates or incentives.
Oh my gosh, you want to hear these? Okay, we have Beaumont Cherry Valley Water District, Cabazon County Water District, Chiraco Summit Water District, Coachella Valley Water District, Desert Water Agency, Eastern Municipal Water District, Elsinore Municipal Water District, Fern Valley, High Valley, Idlewild, Mission Springs, Yoruba, Pine Cove, Pinyon Pines, Rancho, Rubidoux Community, San Bernardino Municipal Water District. So they must serve some of Riverside County too, because I'm looking it up by county. Temecula Water District and Western Municipal Water District is listed twice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there's a lot of water. Riverside's a pretty, well, same with San Diego.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. I'm getting the picture. For some reason, I just thought Riverside was a little bit like more cohesive with their water, but it doesn't sound like it.
I think we're pretty much all over the place. And San Diego, now you just have the one, or don't you? Do you have multiples as well?
Oh, we're all over the place. We have like Cal American serves a couple different spots. I mean, I'm in Valley Center. We have Valley Center Municipal. The county water authority is its own water delivery system. The city of San Diego has its own water. Or whoops, sorry. Like every city basically has its own, where it's getting water from, but mostly it's coming from metropolitan.
Once again,
and the Imperial Irrigation District. Yeah. Can you guys hear me still? Oh,
you're good.
Yeah, you sound good.
That's because my head came out. Do I sound better with my headphones or without?
I am without, to be honest.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
Did I lose you now?
No, we still hear you.
Can
Shoot.
you hear us?
Oh, you can hear me. I just can't hear you.
Oh,
Oh, now I can. Now I can. Okay. All right, cool. Oh, that's not what I wanted. I'm just based on that information, trying to make a couple modifications. Cool. Do I have like about an hour?
about 50 minutes, 45 minutes to kind of an hour, then a little bit of Q&A afterwards if people have questions.
Sure. Okay.
So
I could definitely talk for more than that. I think I have a lot of like detailed information that I might just have to like breeze through just to show them like there's information there, but we can't go into it all at a deep level. And I think that would be fine.
that should be okay. And tell them where they can find that information possibly.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of times we just set up a slide for the back page of a presentation with all the links.
Mhm.
you know, for additional information or for.
Yeah, I have some of that.
Yeah, that's what I think you would have some anyway.
Yeah. Mhm.
And then even if you have handouts that you wanted to share, you can email those to Western. And actually to myself, because I would put them on the Master Gardener website. And Tom could make sure that they get on the Western website.
Okay, I don't have anything lined up at this point for that, but yeah, I'm sure whatever we have is going to be just fine.
Well, we have 3 minutes. So if anybody wants a potty break, a drink break, this is it.
Yep.
Tom, did you make me a co-host?
I did.
Okay. Oh yeah, I guess I see the rating people. Never mind. Okay. So did you see we're going to get down to 31 degrees, freezing again. Temecula freezes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But that's okay. My native plants don't.
Dude, native plants are the best.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Okay. So when do you want me to start sharing? Do you want me to start sharing? Like, do you just want me to have my screen up now, or do you want to wait until after we do introductions?
Go ahead and put your screen, just your opening screen up.
Mhm.
I'm gonna, let's see, it's 10:59. People come in like last minute now. It's not like before, you know. People would sign on early. Yeah, so if we make sure we get that to full screen again, there we go. Okay,
Cool.
Yeah, we'll open with that, and then let's see, we have oh, you're okay with this being recorded, correct?
Sure.
Okay, questions at the end, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But if they put it in the chat, that's fine.
Let
Actually,
you know. Okay.
I can't see the chat, but maybe if you guys can.
So it's okay to interrupt you if it's a slide about how you're hooking something together and there's a question, go ahead and interrupt. Is that what you're saying?
No, we can. Yeah, let's just wait until afterwards.
You can go back to the slide.
Yeah, I can also look at the chat afterwards.
True. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Looks like we're at 10 o'clock.
Sure. I'm sorry.
Thanks,
I'm gonna
people.
close that out.
Morning, everyone. We're going to give everyone a few minutes to finish signing on.
Do you guys know how many people signed up?
No, we were just talking about that. We didn't have the number. Oh, we've got 27 so far,
Oh,
28.
wow, great.
Yeah. Well, I
Okay,
think
yeah.
this is such a point of interest now.
Mhm. I'm glad greywater is getting sexy.
There you go. All right. Okay, well, Tom, do you want to start with your little introduction?
Definitely.
I will ask everybody to please mute yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Janice. Good morning and welcome to the UCCE Master Gardener Program of Riverside County and Western Municipal Water District's efficient landscaping workshop. Your hosts today are Janice Rosner, Master Gardener, and me, Thomas Cleve, and I am a Western employee.
Okay, before we get started, I'd like to make mention of a few of our Master Gardener events throughout the area. We are trained volunteers that offer science-based information and who advise and educate the public on gardening and horticulture. Our information tables are spread throughout the county. Ask a Master Gardener, and are also available at farmers markets throughout the county at multiple locations. If you're going to be out in the desert, we even have farmers markets in Palm Springs and La Quinta. On the first Saturday of each month, RCRCD has a Master Gardener table available to the public. This is a public land use center, and you are invited to tour their 3-acre demonstration garden of sustainable practices.
We'll meet again here on March 11th for our next workshop with guest speaker Kathy Steckman, speaking home composting and building a 5-star hotel for your worms. We'll be, please submit your questions through the chat feature and we'll submit them to the speakers. We will post resources such as Master Gardener's hotline in the chat for specific challenges you may face in your yard.
Okay. Brook Sarson, welcome, is the co-owner and CEO of Catching H2O and Home to H2O, a rainwater catchment and greywater recycling company in San Diego. She graduated from the University of the Pacific with degrees in electrical engineering and applied mathematics. Also, Brooke earned her permaculture certificate in 2008. Her companies, Catching H2O and H2O, have saved water in our often drought-ridden region, which has helped many people with more water resilience. Brooke says one of her favorite parts of her job is getting to travel all over Southern California, to be invited into people's home, talk with them, different types of people from different political and social and economic spectrum. When she meets clients, they're sharing their showering habits with her. And at the same time, explaining every plant they have in their beautiful yards. I really feel she has a finger on the pulse of the different things in her community and what they care about. And so I would like to introduce to you our guest speaker, Brooks. Thank you, Brooke. Take it away.
Hi, everybody. I'm really excited to talk to you today about greywater. And I know that we, being master gardeners, we love plants. And so I think it's really important that we, understand that we don't have to live without them and in order to save water. And greywater is one of a great couple of options for having abundant landscapes and abundant community scapes, which keeps us all healthy in so many ways. I think one of the first things to talk about whenever we're talking about water is really putting it in context. I think a lot of people I talk to are like, well, I use a little bit of water, or I use a lot of water, or it rains a little bit, or it rains a lot. I mean, there's actual numbers associated with all of that, which we'll talk a little bit more about. But most people, I think, in Southern California don't really understand where our water comes from and like what a drought means to us, or what, our individual water use means. And so I'll just start by kind of giving us all a little context. So I'm sorry if some of you already know this, but most of the water for Southern California comes from Northern California and the Colorado River. So depending on where you are, it might be more or less of a percentage of imported water. But knowing that comes at a great cost of energy for the state. And so, you know, it's a big contributor to climate change. And also the fact that we're bringing all this water in to where we are means that we're, you know, depleting or having impact on other ecosystems that we're not related to. So if there's, you know, water issues or ecological issues going on the Colorado River that we're not connected to because we're not having those, then we may not understand like why our water supply is affected, you know, where we live. You know, if it rains a lot tomorrow, but it hasn't rained in the Colorado River basin, then we might be scratching our heads as to like why we're still talking about being in a drought. So it's just important to understand that. And I think it builds an argument for trying to create more local resilience. And the way that we can do that is have more localized solutions, you know, in our own backyards. Another thing to understand is, you know, how much water are we using? So these are just to give you some ideas of different water use, you know, throughout California, throughout the United States, and then comparing us to different places like our neighbors in Tijuana, just across the border, and then also, you know, Brisbane, Australia. They live just like we do. So when you see that in Riverside, the gallons per capita per day is 140 gallons per person per day, we start to think, how can we bring that number down? How can, you know, because that's a place where what's creating the most impact on, you know, our water supply issues. And then, you know, most of the water that we use in our homes is actually in our landscapes. So this graph shows 50%, but in some places it's as much as 75% of our water use is in our landscapes. And so that is a key place to start conserving water. And so, you know, gray water is, you know, the pieces of the pie, like the shower, the laundry, the bath. It's not the dishwasher or the toilet. So, you know, we might be able to meet some of our landscape needs, not only by conserving water, so using less water in the landscape, but then the piece of the pie of indoor water use expands, and maybe that will be a better match for some of our landscape. So again, being master gardeners, you guys can appreciate this, that, you know, in order to save water, we don't need to have barren, dry landscapes, but with a couple little tweaks, we can create abundant landscapes while still using very little water. And so this example is the same amount of water, municipal water use in both pictures. You know, the first one is the residents' effort to save water, and the next one we've implemented a laundry gray water system, put climate appropriate plantings, and added some rainwater harvesting into this landscape. And so you can grow like a beautiful garden without having to worry about using a bunch of extra water. So it is important, again, to acknowledge that gray water is water from your showers, your vanity sinks, and your laundry. It is not water from your dishwasher or your toilet. The state of California calls these supplies black water. And so we don't want to put those into our garden because they have higher levels of bacteria. These are some of the questions that I get. And so you might see yourself somewhere in here, and I'm hoping that by the end of this presentation, we will answer these questions for you. Can I access my shower water if I'm on a slab? I have a high efficiency clothes washer. Is it even worth it to use my gray water? What off-the-shelf systems are there? Can I just tie my gray water right into my irrigation system? Can I kind of route my gray water into my rainwater tank and store it all together for future use? And can I just use my gray water right out here on my lawn? this will be the last really busy slide with words, so I apologize. But, you know, it is important to understand like why different kinds of people use gray water. I mean, you might think, well, of course, it's just for watering my plants. But people have all different kinds of reasons. And one common reason that we get is, you know, my septic system is failing, or there's an issue with my septic system. And instead of spending a lot of money on fixing it, repairing it, upgrading it, or whatever, I just want to reroute the biggest, you know, as much water as I can from the septic system. Might as well use it as a resource. And so you're going to pay, you know, maybe the same amount of money, maybe less, to get the water out into your garden, but then you get a resource as well, instead of just having the water going to your septic. And there is a difference. People say, well, it's already going into my septic system, it's a resource already. But when the water goes into the septic system, it's, you know, 3 to 5 feet down below the surface. And that's inaccessible to a lot of different kinds of plants and trees and things like that. I mean, maybe trees can get to it once they're established. But when we're using gray water, we're really keeping it in, you know, the top 12 inches of the soil or so. So we're making it really bioaccessible to the root systems. Also, by the time we send all of our water out to the wastewater treatment facility, you know, that's a whole energetic process as well. And then it gets released out into the waterways. But if we can process the gray water in our own landscapes, we're keeping whatever nutrients have been added to the gray water in our own soil systems. And then our soil is treating the water. Our plants are using those nutrients, and then the water can be is cleaned up before it kind of enters the waterways. And it's a much lower energy process. You know, if we're all just kind of like passively doing this in our homes, then we're not like needing to bigger and bigger our municipal structures all the time. So today I'm going to talk to you about four gray water system options, and I'm going to have to kind of fly through this information. It's a little bit dense, but just so you know that there's all of this is possible. And then there's some good books and resources and websites that you can access later to revisit some of this information. The basic thing that you should understand is that gray water is legal in the state of California. Laundry to landscape systems are do not require a permit, and I'll talk about why. Other gray water systems do require a permit. You might have to do a little work in Riverside to get the permitting agencies to understand how to permit appropriately. And I may be able to help with that if you need to. It might just be simpler to bypass the permitting system, but just do it according to code. So, you know, ideally, you can stay in a lower price range by just using gravity and just having water kind of flooding out into your landscape. This would not be tied into an existing irrigation system, and you would possibly need to rework some of your landscape, and I'll go over that. But you can also pressurize your gray water and distribute it in a couple different ways, but you can see the costs kind of incrementally go up. So it's deciding what is worth it for you, you know. So the reason why the laundry to landscape system does not require a permit is because you are not altering the existing plumbing of the house. So currently your laundry tube just goes down a drain that's built into your house. And what we're doing is we're rerouting it into a 3-way valve so that you can choose to keep it going into that existing drain or send it outside. Now, the cool thing about the laundry to landscape system is there is a pump already on your washing machine that's underutilized. It just pumps the water up to go to the drain. And so we're actually tying in with a 1-inch line to that laundry hose so that we can use that pressure to pump water out. So we're avoiding, you know, having to go into the slab because we can go right through the wall, and then we can distribute the water to areas around your garden. So, you know, the pros are you don't need a permit, and you can, whether you have a slab or a crawl space, usually you can just run the water to an outside wall. Most of the parts are just plumbing parts from Home Depot or an irrigation supply store. It's very low maintenance if you install it right. You know, maybe once a year you add some mulch, just check that the outlets are draining. It's very low cost. You know, if you have a front load washer and you're only doing a couple loads a week, it might not even be worth the investment to you, especially if you have like an extensive garden. And then if you're pretty attached to Tide or, you know, your whatever detergent you're using, it might not be a good match because that product might not be good for your plants, even if you like it for your clothes. So the first step to any gray water design is really understanding how much water you're using. And so with a washing machine system, you know, these are some kind of simple go-tos that I use based on, you know, researching different kinds of models. But typically a large top load washer, a newer one uses about 25 gallons a load, and an older one uses as much as 50 gallons a load. Whereas a front load washer uses about 10 gallons a load. The newer ones are like, you know, 10 to 12 gallons a load. And so, you know, based on how many loads a week you use, you'll know how much water you have available. And that's important because when you want to go match it to your outdoor area, you don't want to think you're kind of meeting all of your needs if you're, you know, only generating 20 or 30 gallons a week. So these are the kinds of parts that we use. You know, we have the diverter valve. That's the most expensive part of this system. Some people implement it with 2 ball valves, but I don't like that because if both ball valves are shut off, then you have a situation where the washing machine water cannot eject any water at all. So this is the diverter valves, kind of like the fail safe. And we use once we get outside of the house, we use simple poly tubing to run the water around and keep it pretty shallow. It's really easy to change it up, you add a new tree, add a new outlet, you know, take a tree away, take out an outlet. It's not you don't need as much gluing as PVC and things like that. And then keeping it shallow just means it's easy to kind of see where any problems are. So this is kind of a typical diverter valve setup. Some people are like, why even bother with the diverter valve? California code says that you need to divert the water. You need to be able to divert the water back to the sewer. And there's a couple reasons why. First of all, for your plant's sake, you know, if you're using bleach or anything, have chemicals or anything that's going down the drain that you don't want to give your plants, you want to be able to switch it back to the sewer. And also, if it's raining and everything's flooded, you know, you have these basins that are kind of collecting water and allowing it to soak in. But if those are flooded, and then the water can spill out and overflow into the storm drain or into a neighbor's yard or down into an adjacent like wild area like a canyon or something, you really are not supposed to be releasing this bacteria-laden water into those other spaces. You're supposed to contain it all on your site. So that would be another time you might want to switch it back to the sewer. Or for example, if you've designed your yard to have, you know, 4 loads of laundry's worth of water, but you have guests from out of town, and now you're generating like 10 loads in a week, you might kill your plants from overwatering. So just being careful of those kinds of things. I just want to mention that this air vent, that little black vent is an air release for the pump. So we just not all systems might need it, but we install it every time just because one thing that can happen, and I have seen this happen, is the water will just siphon if it doesn't have that air brake. As the water is pouring into your washing machine, the pump will just be continuously pumping it out. So you don't want to get caught in that cycle. Different kinds of products that you can use. The main thing is avoiding salts. If you have a high clay content soil, the salts will just tend to sit on the surface of the soil. And a lot of our municipal water is also already high in salt. So that will dehydrate essentially your plants the same as it does with us. So avoiding that, and then, you know, just a lot of chemicals. You know, I think about it kind of like if your plants have certain, you know, nutrient needs, just like we have certain nutrient needs. And if you're putting a lot of toxic stuff into the soil, then your plants are probably not going to be stoked. So kind of gearing towards natural products and avoiding things like sodium, borax, and bleach. So in order to, and this kind of part of the conversation goes with all the other greywater as well, which is kind of how to design your yard to hold, capture, and use greywater effectively. And one of the ways of doing this is creating basins or areas that can allow water to soak in and pool and soak in. So instead of like a little well right around your tree where the water is maybe going to be flooding around the crown of the trunk, you want to spread the water at the drip line of the trees and plants. So when we do a lot of retrofits, so we have existing landscapes that we need to come into and kind of put in as many outlets as we can so that as many of the plants that are already in existence can access that. And, part of it is, each plant doesn't need its own watering system, even though we think it does because of drip systems and things like that. That's a very efficient way of watering, in a spread out landscape. But with the greywater, we don't have the benefit of being able to kind of dose it very precisely. So we just want to kind of get the water to spread and wick through the landscape to the different kinds of plant roots. And sometimes it means you need to move plants around to get that to happen. And so you don't want this flooding water that you see here bioavailable. You don't want like birds to come and drink it or your dog to drink it or anything like that, because it does have bacteria in it. So you want to cover this with mulch. And, that means that your whole landscape could look pretty uniform. And you don't have to see a big hole in your landscape, but it's doing the work under the mulch. So you want to just make sure that that water is not overflowing into your neighbor's yard, and you're protecting the outlets from getting clogged. So you can design these basins in the area you need based on understanding your soil type and the percolation rate of the soil. So this is a simple home percolation test. Dig a hole at the bottom of your basin, about a shovel deep and a shovel wide. Fill it with water, let it soak in. You're simulating saturated soil conditions. So you can know that it's percolating even in a saturated event, and then fill it again and time how long it takes to go down 1 inch. And then you can use this soil infiltration rate table, which you can get access to through one of the books I can show you at the end of the presentation. But for example, if you have 2 loads of laundry per day and a top load washer, you're producing 25 gallons, twice. This should be 2 loads of, yeah. So it's your peak event during the week. So if you do all of your laundry in one day, then that's what you would do. If you only ever do 2 loads per day during the week, then that would be your max, your peak rate. So you might be doing 7 loads a week, but you're only ever doing 2 loads per day. So that's 50 gallons of water that you're trying to disperse into your landscape. And if you have like a heavy clay soil, maybe it takes a minute, it takes 45 minutes to an hour for that water to go down 1 minute. Then you apply this coefficient of 1, it's like the third line down. That's the area needed in square feet per gallons per day. That means you need 50 square feet in your landscape to contain, a 2-load event in your landscape. And so you're trying to understand how much space do I need to give up in my yard to be able to capture the water without it pooling and flooding and overflowing and lingering for more than 24 hours. Because that's when the bacteria turns kind of septic and it starts to stink. So you really just want this water soaking in every 24 hours. And this is how you design for that. When you're developing your basins, you want to make sure they're located away from the foundation of your house, because you don't want moisture patterns, lingering next to your foundation. You can wreck it. And then you want to design the basins deep enough to contain water, but not so deep that they go way past the root systems of your plants. Legally, the water has to be distributed 2 inches below something. And so that for us is mulch. It's a living organic mulch material, not gravel, because the mulch then allows the soil to host the microorganisms that then feed on the bacteria and other things that are coming through with this gray water, like lint, skin cells, things like that. That just becomes food for the microorganisms, which, as you know, as gardeners, turn that into compost and food for your plants. This is some examples of what basins look like when they're being developed, from the start of a landscape. You can kind of develop your basin structure and then do your plantings around it. So this has several outlets for the laundry. Plus, you'll notice at the bottom where the rocks are, the little green lid down there, that's rainwater coming in. And it's always a good idea to bring rainwater into these systems whenever you can, because the rainwater is so clean, it's going to help annually push any accumulated salts through the soil. This is another example. So it's like before, you can see the contours of the basin and the pipes and stuff. And then afterwards, when everything's covered up with mulch, you don't even know there's a basin there. You don't even know what's happening there. And now all the plants are stoked because they're just getting the water that kind of wicks through the soil to them. So that was the laundry system. You can also do shower gray water systems. The important thing is that you have to understand is the plumbing that you need to get to is under the bathtub or the shower. So that's either in the crawl space or it's under the slab. This is why if you have a slab foundation, it's really challenging or impossible to access gray water from your shower, unless you have a second story or you're doing a remodel and your shower or bathtub is right next to an outside wall. And then it's, tricky, but maybe not as impossible. But let's just assume that we have a crawl space and you can get to the plumbing after the P-trap and after the vent and put a 3-way valve in, and that gets tied into the sewer system in one direction and then drains out to your yard. Now, the trick with using gravity is that you need 1/4 inch per foot of fall for the water to continuously flow. So it needs to be flat or downhill. If it's flat, but the plants that you need to water are, very far away, then you would end up very, very deep in a basin, and you might be missing some opportunities to water some plants. So there's definitely some technical skill involved. But if you can do it, it's the best value. You're going to get way more water from your shower than you are from your washing machine. And if you can use gravity, then it's relatively inexpensive. Digging trenches and basins is like the large cost as opposed to materials. So if this is also a low maintenance system, because again, you're just refilling mulch in the basins, making sure they're not getting clogged, but there's not a lot of points of having to do that. It's really just a couple of points. So it's a very robust system, especially if you're planting in a way that can easily benefit from flooding gray water. It kind of grows into itself really well, and you're not going to have to fine tune things very much. Yeah. So, and I talked about some of the cons already. So again, we want to understand how much water you're actually producing. Typically, shower heads these days are about 2 gallons per minute, maybe 2.5 gallons per minute. If you have an older one, you should replace it. But you can get down to 1.5 gallons per minute or 1.2 or even 0.5, but that's like taking a shower in a dorm facility and nobody likes that. So if you're filling a bathtub, that's about 35 gallons, maybe 25 if you've got a small child. And then if you have sink aerators, your bathroom sinks, you can get 0.5 gallon sink aerators, or 1.5 gallon is on the kitchen sink, but remember, kitchen sinks are technically black water. So then you can just kind of do a little chart and say how long everybody takes showers for every day. And you can get an actual volume of water that people are producing. So for example, if you have 2 people taking 10-minute showers every day, that's 20 minutes of showers, that's 40 gallons a day, that's 280 gallons a week of water. The way that we kind of think about it, the way I think about it, the easiest way for me to think about it is like a fruit tree in our region uses about 25 to 50 gallons a week of water. as long as it's not like row planted and, monoculture. And so, 280 gallons is like what, 11 fruit trees worth of water or so, 10, 11 fruit trees worth of water. That's a lot of water. That's awesome. So getting these valves in is kind of tricky. I mean, you can see this is like under a floor, and that's fun plumbing. The one on the right was like a remodel, so they were able to pull the shower water out separately from the wastewater and get the valve in there and then tie it back into the sewer. And now this empty hole in that three-way valve can be routed to the landscape in the future. This was from a second story, just pulling the pipe out and tying it back in later. Not everybody wants to have this exposed valve on their wall, but it sure makes it easy to access. If your valve is under a crawl space or otherwise hard to get to, you might want to just put a switch in your bathroom, and that's when you can tie it. You can put an actuator on. This is just a standard spa or pool valve. They're Jandy. I think there's a Hayward version. And so they come with these low voltage actuators that just tie in with a transformer, and then you can put a toggle switch located somewhere convenient. Here's the actuator. It just, gets tied onto the three-way valve, and then, you can kind of do this any way you want. This is a transformer. You can plug that in anywhere and then put the toggle switch in anywhere. This is what a gravity gray water, basin looks like for a shower. You have the black pipe coming out, and it goes into a flow splitter, which is a double L fitting, not a T. And that is installed perfectly level. And then when the water hits that, it splits into two places. So that's how you can spread it. Some people do this over and over again, so you get it split into 4 places or 8 places. But, if any one of those moves, then all the water starts going to one side and not the other. So we just try and keep it simple and do put 1, maybe 2 in max. But you can see after the shower water starts coming out, the water starts flooding this basin. And then afterwards, the basin is filled in with mulch and plants are planted above and below, and you don't even know it's there. This is just a technical, like a slight variation on the gravity gray water system from a shower. Sometimes we'll use a distribution box if we have like a bunch of different places that we need to move the water and there's lots of slope. The branch drain system gets a little tricky. So we basically build out these boxes with, maybe 8 or so outlets all around the bottom at the same level. So as water's filling the box, it starts pouring into all the tubes evenly, and all the tubes are directed into individual basins around different trees. So this is just a fun way to do it. It's again, low cost compared to pumping, and low maintenance. There's not a lot of points of failure, and it allows you to move the water to many places instead of just a couple. But then you have all these tubes that you have to like bury or route. So that part gets a little tricky. So this is kind of what it looks like in real life. This is not only are we routing the gray water in there, but also rainwater from drains around the house, so that we have a natural distribution system for the rainwater to go into the gray water areas as well. So that's kind of a nice little bonus of that kind of distribution system. So you can see all those tubes kind of going downhill, and each one goes to a basin around a tree. Getting into pumps, we've developed, so there are off-the-shelf systems, but we do not use off-the-shelf systems. In fact, we've been called in several times to fix or maintain off-the-shelf systems. And in our experience, what we've found is that off-the-shelf systems tend to use like cheaper parts. And the reality is that there isn't a one-size-fits-all scenario for every house. Every house is so different. You have your own topography, you have your own plants, you have your own showering patterns. And so we found that it's simpler just to make sure we know we have like really good pieces that we use, and then we just design the pieces that fit best with each home. And so the basic pieces that you're working with when you have a pump system is you have some kind of filtration based on, the volume of water and the pumping mechanism. It could be a simple filter or it could be a more complex filter. Then you have an effluent pump that kind of throws the water out. And then you have the distribution system and how it's being distributed in the landscape. And so the simplest way to do it is, to have basically this flood irrigation system where you don't have little drip emitters. So you don't have to filter the water very fine at all. So you just have a simple filter that you can just kind of like pull out once every 6 months and dump out all the accumulated hair or whatever. And you have your, 1/2 horsepower, maybe 3/4 horsepower pump that just kind of pushes the water out. And then you have something that's very similar to the laundry to landscape system where it's just, tubing that goes to individual basins, but you can have more of them because there's a lot more water being distributed. So this is a great system if you need to irrigate uphill, or if you need to irrigate far distances, or if you have a lot of, different kinds of things that need water instead of like just a smaller area. You don't have to do as much filtration as if you were putting it into a drip system, which is really nice. But, there is added cost to pumps, filters, etc. And you do need to clean it. It's actually, how often depends, but I don't think it's 6 to 8 weeks. I think it's more like, every quarter or something like that. It just depends. And so this is kind of what it looks like. You've got your surge tank, you've got your little filter in there, water pours in from the black pipe, and then it gets pumped out into, an orchard, say, for example, that's uphill. And you have all these little basins in the orchard. They get covered up with mulch, but the water kind of gets directed out to all of those basins and just floods them and soaks in, floods them and soaks in. But, sometimes that's not good enough. If you have a landscape that's very spread out, or you have a very, like a bunch of, plants kind of in a line, and you can't maybe create basins, you have tight spaces and you can't afford to make basins, then maybe you do need a drip system. We don't generally tie into your existing drip system because even with advanced filtration, the water quality is pretty low. So there's a special kind of drip emitter called Irrigray. It's a little bit more expensive, but looks very similar to like Netafim or whatever. It just, the emitters are designed to be able to handle the lower quality of the water. And so, this might be a good situation too, for if you are bringing in more than one shower, or showers and lavatories, you're generating a lot more water. So you want to spread it, to a larger area. You can even put in like an indexing valve. So it's like the surge tank fills to, instead of being evacuated every time you take a shower, the surge tank has some float systems in there, and it fills to 70 gallons. And then that 70 gallons gets all pumped out to one area. The indexing valve changes. And then the next time it fills 70 gallons, it goes out to another area. I mean, it's really quite simple, but it's still, cost adds up for these kinds of systems. So these filters can get kind of nasty, and these definitely need to be cleaned, every 6 to 8 weeks. There's a couple different levels of filtration coming into the surge tank and then going out of the surge tank. And so another benefit of this kind of system is that the filters allow you to use different kinds of products that you might be more limited with when the water is going out directly to the soil with less filtration. So, but like I said, it can get costly. So this is kind of like what something like that can look like. You're putting it in maybe during the building process, so everything's routed in there, just so, or we can do it as a retrofit as well, but it's just, digging in all this infrastructure. But the landscape that you see there is kind of like a good example of when, you would opt for this instead of a flood irrigation. Like on those tiny little terraces, there's, and you know, these like rocky, like landscape areas, there's no room to put basins. So really the only way to get water distributed to those areas, you know, with a plant every 12 inches or whatever, is a drip system. So that's a good example. So what kinds of plants can we use gray water for? Not everything. Certain plants like blueberries like more acidic soil, whereas like gray water tends to be more alkaline. Really drought tolerant hardy natives and succulents sometimes don't love the accumulated salts and stuff that come from gray water. And then, you know, like avocado trees, for example, are sensitive to salts. There are ways to still irrigate them with gray water, maybe distributing the water further uphill and letting it kind of wick through the soil more so that by the time it gets to the root system, it's free of most of those salts. But just keep that in mind as you develop your gray water system and your plantings. You definitely should not surface flow gray water on any kind of lawn or ground cover, because it does have bacteria in it. And if you have these areas, likely they're for people to recreate on or animals or something, and you just don't want them coming into contact with the gray water. You also don't want to irrigate your leafy green vegetables with gray water. You don't want to kind of have water spray with bacteria hitting things that you're putting in your mouth. That doesn't mean that you can't grow edible foods with gray water. They just need to be the kinds of plants that grow the fruit up and out of the basin areas or wherever the gray water is being distributed. So like tomatoes, the gray water is kind of pooling near the root system and you're picking the tomatoes from higher up, or the passion fruit or the blackberries, you know, things like that. So also no root vegetables, because again, you don't want the bacteria touching the food that you're going to eat. You know, things like roses and a lot of our standard landscaping plants really love the gray water. So it's really just about distributing the water well enough in these areas that they can all access it, or moving the plants around. But these are the kinds of things that love gray water. As far as maintenance goes, you know, on the right, what you see is the mulch kind of has filled in the basins, and then you start to see pooling water on the downhill side of the valve cover box. And that's the kind of maintenance that you might have to do, is if the mulch kind of starts to break down and become compacted, and then now the basins that you've developed to hold the water don't have capacity anymore. So you might just need to dig the mulch out and then replace it with new mulch, or, you know, larger woody mulch that breaks down more slowly, so you don't have those flooding issues. Or the outlets get clogged. You know, it's like roots grow in, you know, bananas are, you know, a great thing to grow with gray water, but then you've got this like crazy root infiltration. So you just want to check this annually. This particular one hadn't been checked for many years, and then you can see what happens. And this is why you don't store gray water. So we're not storing gray water in our rainwater tanks or in barrels. If you do see gray water systems that have some kind of tank involved, it should be a surge tank that just basically catches the water in and then it distributes right out of it, like when it's pumped or drained, but not ever storing it for later use. And this is why. I mean, you can see this scummy water is disgusting. It stinks and it's a health hazard. So don't store your gray water. You can get permits. This is just an example of a permitted system in San Diego. Though what they wanted to see was the distribution areas. They didn't care about the plumbing as the house was being built, because that was in its own permit, you know, but making sure we are saying where the three-way valves are going, and then these like gray distribution areas that were developed based on, you know, if you look at the code, they have tables for like how many people do you assume are in the house based on the number of bedrooms, how much water are people using based on a standard water use thing. It really doesn't matter how much water you're actually using or how many people are actually in the house. They're just using these standard formulas. And then you get a soil report and see, you know, oh, I have sandy clay soil or loamy soil or whatever. And then they have a table for how to decide how big the distribution area is. It's the same concept as the percolation rate, but they just have like standards that they apply for the purposes of permitting. And so you can see on the top house, each shower has its own little distribution area because of the topography. And the sizes are based on all of those calculations. So that's what they wanted to see for the permit there. And then they just wanted to see, what does a mulch basin look like? So it's just like this trapezoidal shape basin that has the pipe coming in and a valve cover box over it, and it's filled with mulch. How deep is it, and all of that kind of stuff. Now, this is what's really inspiring, is because when you actually do the calculations and figure out how much gray water you have available, how much rainwater you have available at your home, and then you develop the landscape based on that with appropriate plantings or plantings that work in certain ways. This is what's possible. This is actually a home in Riverside that was developed by my friend Daniel there. He's a permaculture designer, in conjunction with us. And we did all the math and we figured it out. And all of this is a 2-year-old landscape that is growing on gray water. They have, some rainwater tanks that are watering veggie gardens and stuff, but like this area was developed based on gray water being produced from the house. And you can see it's not just like, oh, super drought tolerant stuff. This is tropical plantings growing in the middle of Riverside. It's like on 4th Street or something. So very, very inspiring. Gray water is one option, and we didn't really talk about rainwater storage, but that's another thing that we talk about. But again, when you can combine all of these available on-site resources and you develop a landscape that can rely on these resources, you can really have a lot of abundance without needing to rely on municipal water. And if everybody was doing this, remember 50% of our home water use is landscapes. If we would be cutting back on 50% of our water in our cities and towns and still having like amazing abundance. At the same time, we don't have to put a lot of stuff and things in to create abundance. This is a very passive rainwater harvesting, example where we took, kind of what used to be a lawn on a median or on a nature strip and routed all the water from the house under the sidewalk and created basins that can catch and hold water and put in a completely native landscape. And you can see just how beautiful and abundant that is. And it didn't require any things. We didn't have to buy something to make ourselves, eco or whatever. It's just like a passive way of using our on-site water resources. And it really has to do, again, with, creating your water budget. What water resources do you have available and what will grow with that? That is the conclusion of my talk, and these are some great resources that you can rely on. The oldest one is the one on the bottom, Create an Oasis with Gray Water. Art Ledwig developed the laundry to landscape system, like 30 years ago or something, and Oasis laundry detergent. And this is a great resource. And they helped to change the code for California as well. But Laura Allen has also come in the last few years and created these great resources, Gray Water, Green Landscape, and the Waterwise Home, for very, very good information on like really how to, design and develop your own gray water systems. So those are really great resources. They also have websites that have a lot of good resources. I have our website listed there. San Diego Sustainable Living Institute has permaculture classes, I think coming up in the spring, maybe, that are online and have some in person. We're down in Valley Center. And I will be soon getting my water harvesting certificate course up on our website, which should be in May. It's a 10-day course. We install laundry to landscape systems, shower gray water systems, water harvesting earthworks, rainwater tanks. We perform maintenance on existing systems, and I teach you all of the theory and everything. So it's a really great class, and I try to do it over 2 long weekends so that people who work can minimize how much time they have to take off to take it. But it's a great opportunity to learn more. So I think I can open it up for questions now.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you, Brooke. There are a few questions. And do you want to just read through them, or do you want us to? There was questions about shampoo and soaps,
Yeah.
recommendations for both shower and laundry.
Yeah.
I guess
So
we're looking for brand names.
yeah, so some of the ones that well, Oasis is the best. It's sometimes hard to find. It's at natural food stores, and sometimes you can get it on Amazon. It was developed specifically to be not only not bad for your plants, but actually good for your plants. There's a lot of things, a lot of detergents that actually say like greywater safe, like at Trader Joe's and at Costco's. But I don't necessarily buy into that, because they're not really thinking about your soil. They're thinking about water, maybe water quality, but they're not really thinking about your soil and your plants. So they might still have things like something listed as surfactants, which if you look at what is in the surfactants, you'll see like sodium, 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 sodium. So, or even like 7th generation, it's like second ingredient is sodium lauryl sulfate. And then it's like many ingredients are sodium based. So just looking at the labels and trying to learn more about that, just like you might do in the store for your own food, just kind of like avoiding high fructose corn syrup or whatever you're looking out for. Ecos, I found, is a pretty good brand. Also, as your landscape starts to come together and your soil is healthy, it might be able to weather Trader Joe's brand or Costco brand or whatever. It's not going to be the end of the world. I've heard people that are like, oh yeah, I've been using greywater for years and I use Tide and everything's fine. So I think it's something that's possible, but I think just having a good practice, thinking about your soil as something you're trying to nurture, that's helping your plants grow really healthy, is just kind of trying to minimize that. So people use like soap nuts. The big trend now is like the little washer, the sheets, not fabric softener sheets, but little like soap sheets, so that you don't have a big plastic bottle. I just got some great information about them and they look great. They look fine. So, and I think when you think about that tiny little sheet and the volume of water that it's going into, you think, well, it's pretty diluted too. So thinking about all of that is helpful as well.
Okay.
And then I saw somebody asked about hot water, and yeah, you can totally use hot water. One reason why the kitchen water doesn't work, or the dishwasher water, for example, is it comes out steaming hot. By the time your washing machine is filled with hot water, your laundry washing machine, and been through a cycle, it's cooled off, and then it's traveling in the pipe, it's cooled off. Same with the shower water. It's not going to like kill off all your microorganisms or anything like that. Oh, somebody wants to know if I'm talking about rainwater. I would love to talk to you about rainwater. Maybe that will bring me in for another class.
You're on. Definitely. Yeah, because obviously she's talking about vegetables. So the rainwater, I know we've had Daniel speak, that you spoke about, that you mentioned. Because he did water retention, basically the swales for us one time. But we've never had anyone cover the actual rain barrels and or the larger units like you depicted in a couple of your pictures there. So that would be a very interesting class.
Happy to do it. I see Erica also asked if we can use dishwater. So legally, kitchen sink water is considered black water by the state of California. We do sometimes implement kitchen sink gray water for people. There's some things to understand. It's not just about the heat of the water, but also like dishwashers, it's very difficult to find a low sodium soap. So dishwashers are really out. But you're saying if you hand wash, well, things to think about are that your kitchen sink water is higher in bacteria and salts, because, and, you know, fats. So because of the food, you know, your food, you add salt to your food, you have fats going through the line, and all of that can add up to big problems in your soil unless you've done a really good job designing the distribution area. And so it's not just like minimum requirements. You really want to have like a really good situation. And I've seen this happen where enough, you know, kitchen sink water has been going out long enough, and it's like between the soaps and the fats and, you know, food particulates, it kind of gums up the basin, and so water cannot percolate anymore, even if it's, you know, a pretty good basin and it's got mulch in it. So having like a nice big distribution area, having lots of plants that are pumping the water out, and having a good mulch system, but also probably it would have to be maintained a little bit more frequently. Like you'd actually have to pull all the mulch out and replace it, just probably more often than you would if it was just a laundry system. And that means maybe once a year or maybe twice a year, as opposed to maybe once every 5 years or every couple of years. But sometimes we can implement the kitchen sink in a way where it's like only one side of the sink goes out, and that side is only for hand washing and vegetable washing and never for dishwashing. Or, you know, you put a really good strainer on the inlet of the sink, you get rid of your garbage disposal so you never put any more crap down your line, and try and minimize as much particulate matter as you can that goes down. So there's lots of good ways to do that. The good thing about, I will say about kitchen sink water is, even if you're on a slab, that is one of the only water resources you can get to, because the pipes are all right there under your kitchen sink. So you can put your 3-way valve there under your kitchen sink and pop it right outside without having to worry about the slab and get it out to your plant. So it is a good option. It's just, you have to be really careful.
Here was another vote for glass sun cistern and rainwater capture. He in fact built a house with a flat roof for that purpose. So he might want to contact you.
I will say that we've done work in Riverside. It was a lot better when my friend Daniel was out there, and he's not out there. So I don't have a ready-made team out there. We do phone call consults, and we do DIY help. So if you're handy, I can help you develop your plan and help you get connected with all of your parts and your resources, and coach you along the way from a distance. I'm also happy to go out there, especially if I can get more than one consultation in a day, or, you know, or get a full day's work out there. For me to bring a team member, it would have to be, you know, a good project that, you know, otherwise, you know, I love working with homeowners, or if you guys know people that want to learn these skills and want to take my water harvesting certificate course, and then they can be your resource in your community, that would be great. Oh, yeah. So my consultations, if it's an in-person consultation in Riverside, I charge $350. It takes about an hour to an hour, you know, 15 minutes or whatever. We walk around your site and assess how much rainwater you have available, how much gray water you have available, how your landscape would best use these opportunities, you know, where we could site a rainwater tank or two, how you would use that water. And then I write up a report for you with all of that information in it, and lots of resources and cost estimates and things like that. And then if you want to move forward with us, we would put a contract together. But like I said, the consultation can also lead to a lot of help for you to do whatever you need yourself. And then I do phone call consults, and those are $100. It's a half hour. You're going to give me your address. I'm going to look it up on Google Earth, and then we'll just talk through, you know, your big picture goals and like kind of what kinds of things you can think about as you move forward.
Okay. Well, if there are no more questions, we have one more comment from Peterson. Yeah, actually, he spoke for us last year, at the end of the year. Okay,
Yeah, and he might still be willing to do like an online class like this. He's just
Yeah.
not in Riverside anymore, but yeah, and sometimes it's like he's really good with the landscape water harvesting. And then, I'll leave it up to him, but he could do the above ground stuff, or he might want to leave that to me. And as far as the water certificate, there is some information on my website currently, but the information about this year's certificate course is not there right now. And I'm hoping to get it up in the next month.
okay. Well, thank you for attending our workshop today, folks. And a big thank you to you, Brooke. It was a great workshop.
Thanks,
Really-
everybody.
And this will be, the recording will be online at WMWD if you go to their website, excuse me, as well as for those master gardeners on VMS. Okay, and we look forward to seeing you next time in in March for our presentation on home composting. Okay, thank you all very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.